Welcome to Inner Peace Better Health, where we explore how healing, hope, and faith intersect in the realest parts of life. I'm your host, Saima, and tonight we are joined by the deeply inspiring Jomel Powell, author of A Marriage Broken by COVID produced Diamonds for You. When life shattered overnight, Jomel didn't just survive, he transformed. His story of fatherhood, faith, and resilience reminds us that even in the darkest moments, God is still walking. Now, if you're feeling weighed down with life challenges, this episode will lift your heart and reignite your purpose. So, Jomel, your story is raw and real. Can you take us back to that moment when everything changed for your family and how your faith carried you through?
You know, it was in August of 2021. My wife let me know she came down with COVID, and she got to the point that she couldn't breathe, and she was in the last trimester of pregnancy. So she asked me, to take her to the hospital. So I got her to the hospital as soon as I could, and I didn't know that when I took her to the hospital, she would be there as long as she was. So she ended up being there for almost 2 months. And my daughter got delivered through C-section while she was there. And when I dropped her off at the hospital, I just figured like maybe she'll be there maybe a day or two, or maybe a week, maybe, and she'll be back home. But that turned into almost 2 months. So I felt hopeless at certain points, and I felt like giving up. I felt drained mentally, and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. So I was put in a predicament where I had to trust in God with all my heart, because that's the only way I was able to stay sane and able to deal with all the challenges that came after that.
Mm-hmm. So, was there a specific moment when you almost like gave up, and what kept you holding on?
Like it's I almost gave up a lot of times throughout this journey. Um, I had to bring my daughter home without her mother, and that was very, very challenging to have to bring my newborn home and care for her without her mother being there. Because when I brought my newborn home, I was caring for her as best as I could, but at the same time, I didn't know if my wife was going to make it or not. Uh, I had suicidal thoughts at one point because I felt like the pressure I was under was too much. But what God kept me grounded in, and what God put in my mind was the fact that I got my daughter that's dependent on me, and I had my wife that was dependent on me as well. So God used those two to motivate me to continue the journey when I wanted to quit. And this happened many times, but I felt like this was God's assignment for me while his plan was unfolding to be there for my family. I feel like nobody can be there for my family like me. I feel like God placed me there for a reason. So that was my motivation, knowing that I had two other people that needed me. And that's what kept me going.
That's really powerful, Jomel. Like, pain doesn't disqualify us, it qualifies us to impact others more deeply, right?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Mhm. Now, your book title is Striking Diamonds. What does that metaphor mean to you, and how can others start seeing their struggles through the same lens?
I came up,
Jomel?
yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I came up with this concept called diamond mindset. And the struggles in life is always here to teach us something. I believe that God puts us in struggles to teach us something. God puts us in struggles to make us wiser, stronger, and have more faith in Christ. So I feel like the diamonds is the wisdom that we gain through suffering, the change of perspective, enlightenment, and growth. Because in life, some of the things we deal with don't change as fast as we want. And there's some things that never change the way we want them to change. But we have to have a different mind state in order to stay sane. So I feel like when we going through struggles and pain, we have to look for what the lesson is. We have to look for the opportunity for growth. And we have to look at it as an opportunity to become a stronger individual. That's the only way to stay positive. And I feel like if we look at everything that way, it'll help us continue to live. Because if we get stuck in the mind state of looking at how bad everything is in our lives or how bad everything is around us, we'll miss the opportunities to live. And my thing to everybody is that life gets tough and life gets very hard. It gets confusing. It gets challenging. But we have to find that space throughout our challenges to still get up and live, still get up and love, still laugh, still enjoy our family, still enjoy our friends. I learned that, no matter how bad life is, we can't just sit there and just be sad and mourning and just dealing with depression the whole time. We got to find a way to live in spite of the struggles. And I feel like when we have God in our lives, God gives us the strength to be able to live through the toughest conditions while we waiting for life to get better.
That's noteworthy. So, what's one diamond you discovered in your own healing?
Well, one of the things that I discovered is sometimes we don't always get the answers. You know, every time things happen, we question God. I'm one of the people that question God about everything. But sometimes God doesn't give us the answers. So one of the diamonds that I learned is even when God doesn't give us the answers, we still have to trust him through the struggle, just like Job did. Another thing that I learned too is divine timing for everything. We want everything to happen so fast because of the society that we live in. But God has a timing for things to happen and God has a plan. So God's timing is not the same as ours. And 9 times out of 10, his plan is totally the opposite of what we had planned. So we have to live our lives doing the best that we can, but knowing that everything is subject to change through divine order.
That shift, from tragedy to testimony is where real transformation lives, no?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. That shift from tragedy to testimony is where real transformation lives, right?
Yes, yes. I feel like I feel like if life was always on cruise control and life was always smooth, we had never transform into better individuals. Like I'm thinking about right now how that caterpillar goes into the cocoon and has to sit there for a period of time, but eventually it transforms into a butterfly, something beautiful to look at. And sometimes I feel like God puts us in dark places and allows us to struggle for us to transform into something different and for our lives to transform into something beautiful because I feel like God is the grand artist and I feel like we are his masterpieces. So as he's taking us through challenges in life, he's also working on us as a masterpiece.
Absolutely. Now, as a minister, how do you guide others who are questioning their faith or struggling to see God in the midst of chaos?
I feel like the first thing that has to be done is to get away from everything, get in a quiet place, and talk to God with all your heart. Talk to God about everything that's on your heart. Talk to God about all your concerns. Talk to God about all your cares in the name of Jesus. And fast and pray to get closer to God. You know, we draw near to God, He draw near to us. And then we'll start to feel the comfort from God. We'll start to hear God in our spirit. And we'll start to gain strength from being close to God. So I feel like the key thing to do is to stay close to God, hold on to your faith, and keep going. Get around some people that are strong believers and have faith too, because that'll be a form of motivation and fire and flame to you too.
Mm-hmm. That's actually so grounding that, sometimes faith doesn't fix everything, it strengthens us to face everything, no?
Yes, yes. You know what? I like the way you said that. That is a perfect way to say that. And I appreciate you saying that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have stepped into fatherhood in an extraordinary way. So, how did that role evolve for you after, like, your wife's illness, and what lessons has your daughter taught you?
One of the main things that I learned from my daughter is that I could do some things that I didn't know I could do. I didn't know that I could rise to the occasion and be a full-time father without experience. But it brought out the best of me in that aspect because having another person that I gotta care for, that I gotta love, that I gotta take care of, that I gotta keep safe, it brought out another version of me. It brought out more of a protector, more of a priest, more of a provider. And it's been a blessed experience, you know. I learned valuable lessons about patience dealing with a young child. Uh, Valuable lessons about being responsible. You know, every decision I make has to involve my child and my wife. Like I can't just get up and do things anymore. It always has to involve my child. So my daughter just brought out the best in me, and my daughter taught me that it was some good inside of me. She showed me that it was a warrior inside of me with God placing her in my life.
That's the real legacy, Jobel, not just surviving for her, but thriving with her.
Yes, yes, that's what I feel it's all about. Like I don't just want to survive. I want to thrive, and I want to elevate and evolve as a person, you know? And I'm still in the process of everything, but we're a little further in the journey, but we still hopeful, you know, like we still hopeful. Sometimes you got to go through a rough season in life for years sometimes before it get better. So I'm just hopeful that things will turn around and get better the way that I really would like.
Mm-hmm. So, what's one thing you hope she carries with her from your example?
I'm Can you say that one more time? My apologies.
Yeah, sure. What's one thing you hope she carries with her from your example?
I hope when my daughter get older that she could look back and look at me, and I want her to also listen to the audiobook and read the ebook and just look at how blessed she is, you know, that and I want her to also see that how I had to push through a long season of suffering and make a lot of sacrifices for her. So maybe one day when it's time for her to be married and things like that, maybe she'll look at some things that I had to do, some sacrifices that I had to make. And I just hope she look for a man that can be a better man than me, but use me as the measuring stick of what to look for. You know, I want her to look at this story and I want her to be better than me. And I want her to pick a man that's better than me when it's her time, you know, like that's why I wrote the story because I wanted her to be able to listen to it when she's an adult. And I wanted my wife to be able to listen to it with me so we can just look back and see where we came from because I know this is not the end for us.
Ah, that's admirable. Now, for someone listening right now who's deep in struggle, what's one piece of encouragement you'd want to hear straight from your heart?
I feel like if you still alive, you still got a chance. If God blessed you to still be alive, you still got a chance to get up and live, get up and do something. You know, it's always somebody doing worse than what we doing. So it's not over. Get back up. Stay encouraged. Stay motivated. You alive, you breathing. It's not over for you.
That's going to surely be beneficial for all our listeners out there, Jomel. And how can they connect with your work and message?
Oh, you said how could they connect with me? Well, You can find me on Instagram. My name is Jomel Williams on Instagram. JOMELWILLIAMS. They can find me on Facebook. My Facebook is Jomel Williams Powell, and they can also find me on TikTok. My TikTok page is called Diamonds for You.
Jomel, thank you for turning your pain into platform and trials into truth. And to all our listeners, life might be heavy, but you're not alone. What's breaking you today could be the beginning of your breakthrough. Until next time, hold tight, trust the process, and believe your story still matters.